still struggling to log in, but maybe let us start. I was going to request that we just reflect a moment of silence, for we are in this period where we continue losing healthcare workers, the sector that is close to the work that we do. Just reflect. We are also mourning the loss of a former Surgeon General, Lieutenant General Ramla Khan, who passed away last week, and we hear the condition was a heart attack. We've lost another professor in the field of public health at University of KwaZulu-Natal. An eminent professor has been teaching and letting other students pass and see good value out of him. There's many other healthcare workers, I may not remember them by their names, all over the country, and maybe just a moment of silence reflecting on that will be a good gesture from us. A moment of silence, honorable members. May the souls of the departed people rest in peace. Thank you very much. Yeah. Honorable members, I just want to indicate in my opening remarks that we are in a journey that we started some few weeks back. As a portfolio committee for health, we have been tasked by the National Assembly to process the bill, the NHI bill. This bill is with us now. Someday it must get out of our space and be in another level, including going to the NCOP and elsewhere. We have been actually constrained by the COVID-19 and the lockdown in terms of focusing on this program. But as I have probably might have alluded to you, I have approached the House Chair and they've indicated that maybe it is time we come back to this process and then see how we can handle this process going forward. So today's presentation is very important because our officials, led by Mr. Bandi, are going to indicate to us where are we. At the time we actually suspended this process in March, some work had been done, and of course, government officials, the parliamentary staff were also affected by the lockdown and they had to curtail their work. Today, therefore, it is a program to listen to the presentation. There are certain decisions that we expect out of you, honorable members, on the suggestions that the presentation is going to make, and that is already been preempted by discussion that I've already had with the House Chair. So I would, for now, leave it at that as my opening comments as to when you're listening to this presentation, have that background in mind, that we have been processing this at another level around parliamentary processes with the leadership of Parliament. I might then ask for Ms. Vuyokazi, if she has managed to log in, to indicate the attendance of our members. Because I don't see them well there, I just see initials, this, that, and the other. I see the hand of one honorable member, Honorable Van Staden. Maybe he wants to speak before Vuyo comes in. Is that so? Okay, let me then listen to you before Vuyo starts.
Chairperson, thank you very much. There's some members who indicated on the group now they're struggling to log in because of load shedding on their side. So I don't know if it's going to be a bit of a problem during this meeting today. So I just brought it under your attention. I just saw it on our WhatsApp group now. Thank you, Chairperson.
Yes, I noticed that in particular. I noticed that from Ms. Kwahube. Is Honorable Ismail in this meeting?
Yes, I am in. Chair.
And I also noticed Honorable Wilson was not on the load shedding, but was asking for a link. And now she's asking for a link not too long ago, a few minutes ago. I hope that our IT people will help her, because the IT was forwarded to our emails last night.
Thank you, Chair. I am actually online. I've managed to reconnect. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Machalamba, any apologies or confirming attendance?
Good morning, Chair, and thank you. In attendance, we have Dr. S.M. Zomo, Mr. Munyai, Dr. Janji, Ms. Gela, Dr. Jacobs, Ms. Kwahube, Ms. Wilson, Ms. Ishmael, Ms. Chirwa, Ms. Klengwa, Mr. Van Staden. That's all, Chair. Thank you.
So it looks like we do not have any apologies. It's a full house.
Yes,
I hope.
we have one apology from Mr. Imam Sheikh. He's attending the appropriations meeting. Thank you, Chair.
That is noted. I hope the members who are struggling, in particular, Ms. Kwahube, will find a way to still be part of us under the conditions that she's at, where she is experiencing load shedding. Then, with that said, honorable members, we just have a 2-hour slot, and I have been able to see the presentation of Mr. Bandi's not more than 20 slides. I've asked him to go through the slides and not read word for word, because these slides have been already forwarded to us. I now give this opportunity to Mr. Bandi to present. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning, honorable members and colleagues. Our presentation will cover 2 main areas. Can I ask Ms. Ngomani to display the presentation, please? The content advisor. The first part of the presentation will give a progress report on what we have been doing pertaining to the public submissions. The second part of the presentation will provide a broad framework for structuring the oral submissions later this year in the 4th term. If you look at that slide, those are the kind of items that we're going to cover in the presentation. Next slide. As a way of a background and context, Parliament, or rather the Constitution adjoins Parliament to facilitate public participation in its processes. That mandate also extends to the processes of the committees. Within this broad mandate from the Constitution, the committee has a discretion to determine how best to fulfill its constitutional obligations. The third point that I should highlight is that the discretion of the committee lies in the reasonableness of its processes. And the committee's processes up to so far has been guided by this principle of reasonableness. Debates and discussions can take place around what constitutes reasonableness. If you recall, members, the committee placed an advert late last year calling for the submissions of public comments. And then the process was followed by the committee conducting a comprehensive program nationwide in all provinces. As the chairperson has already hinted, we are now expected to begin with the third leg of this process, which is to conduct public hearings in Parliament. I don't need to emphasize, you are all aware that the public hearings in provinces were intensive, very comprehensive, and extensive in several respects. And they received praise from different stakeholders. So the idea is to continue with this process of openness and transparency as we go forward. The next slide. Those are the numbers of members of the public who participated in the public hearings. Next slide. Honorable members, you will recall that at the beginning of March, on the 3rd to be specific, we made a presentation highlighting the number of public submissions that we have received. That slide is just to refresh your memories on those figures. Can I request the content advisor to put the slide maybe on the slideshow, please? The bar on the left, you see the total number of. Okay, I must find a way of removing something that is blocking my presentation here. Yes, the hand-delivered submissions. The first bar shows the hand-delivered submissions. The second bar shows the email submissions. On the next slide, you will note, as we highlighted during our presentation in March, that some of the submissions are accompanied by additional submissions. Take, for example, the first submission by the South African Pharmacy Council. It's one submission, but with it, there are several other submissions, 215 of which in this particular case support the bill, and 100 are opposed. We have such submissions where there are additional submissions accompanying the main submission. We have the same situation with the submissions that were made via email on the next slide. There are some submissions that have been accompanied by additional individual submissions. On the next slide, please. Yes, you have the list there. We have some extreme cases, like if you look at the last bullet there, one submission accompanied by 177 submissions. And along with the submissions, you also have 4 videos. Yes, can we proceed to the next slide, please?
Hello, no, let's make a correction there. Your last bullet, 177,000 Let's give the numbers. Someone who's not looking at this position.
Thank you, Chairperson, for that correction.
Sorry, Chairperson, just on a point of order, just quickly. Sorry to interrupt, but we couldn't hear what you just said now as Chairperson. There is one big echo in the background, and it's cancelling all other noises out.
Oh yeah, no, I was saying that last bullet on slide 7. He said 77 submissions, and I said no. He must say one submission accompanied by 177,602 submissions.
Thank you. Yes, please. Perhaps we should highlight from honorable members that Chairperson and I are seated in the same office. That's why the echoing. We are using 2 laptops, observing the social distancing requirement. Yes. So maybe we should use one laptop to avoid this echo.
Yeah, please, I think we must, Chairperson, because it's so noisy. I can't hear anything what the Chairperson is saying, and when the other person is speaking, it echoes so badly, we can't hear anything.
Okay. While he's presenting, I will have my mask on. And when he is finished, he will have his mask off. No, you don't have to put your mask. He has closed his computer. He's going to sit next to me. One of us will be masked, and I am now. And he will present from my computer so that we can decrease that echo.
Thank you. We are continuing from where we stopped. The next slide, please. Ms. Ngoman. Yes. Now, in terms of the work that we have been doing so far, there are 2 processes that are interrelated. The first process, we have been scanning the hand-delivered submissions. The purpose of doing that is to ensure that members have electronic access to all these thousands of submissions. Yes, the scanning only relates to the hand-delivered submissions. With regard to the submissions that we receive via email, members can have access to those submissions. They are available in Uvimba. Uvimba is a system of storing information that Parliament currently uses. So all the submissions that have been submitted via email, there is no problem with those ones. Members can have direct access of them. But currently, we're scanning the hand-delivered submissions, just that there is a process of transparency. Members can have access to all those submissions. Now, the hand-delivered submissions take different forms. You have postcards, you have written submissions, you have handwritten submissions, you have typed submissions, etc., and booklets in certain cases. Once all the submissions have been scanned, members will be able to see the different fields as shown in the next bullet point. For example, you may be able to see who made the submission, what we have referred to as the originating organization. You may also be able to see the name of the person who made the submission, etc. Can we proceed to the next slide? In terms of the progress made, I must be upfront and indicate that the progress has been slow. As the chairperson has already indicated, it was affected by the nationwide COVID-19 lockdown. During level 5 of the lockdown, for example, which took just over a month, members of staff were not allowed to visit the parliamentary precincts. Yes, the bulk of the hand submissions, that number that you see there is an estimate. It may change because we still need to scan and verify these figures. Some of these figures may still change, but we can say that many submissions are of a one-line variety. For example, the submission will say, I support, I do not support the bill. This is only the case of the hand-delivered submissions. Now, members, we need your advice here. If we continue to scan all the documents using the available resources in the committee section, these are about 7 people involved in the scanning, validation, and capturing of the submissions in Uvimba. If we continue with only the available resources, we will only complete the process in December 2020. If we receive additional resources, the completion date for scanning is estimated to be around end of October. We work with the scenario of getting about 10 committee assistants from committee section who will be dedicated to the project. Currently, the staff that we have only support as and when they are available, and that contributes to delay in completing the process. Scanning is not so much of a problem. The next step after scanning is to validate and validate the submissions. That process is very slow. What you see there, the pie chart is a graphic illustration of our progress today. We've only done 3% of the 32,000 submissions that we have. Next slide. That slide provides a breakdown into those submissions that support and the submissions that are opposed to the bill in its current form. But the picture is more complex. This is a simplified version of yes and no. People vary. Some will elaborate using writing several pages in elaboration of their position. But at a very basic level, this does the distinction in terms of support and not support, only in relation to the end. Next slide.
Honorable members, there is a member who's not muted completely. There's a scratching noise. Can we all agree that for now, it's only the one that is used by Mr. Pandi that is going to be unmuted? All of us must mute, please. There's a scratching sound. Can we all check our gadgets, please?
Right. The next slide relates to email submissions. The slide attempts to give a breakdown in terms of those who support, do not support, and those who partially support. When you look at this, the picture that emerges here is different from the picture that emerged from the hand-delivered submissions. With the email submissions, the majority of the people are opposed to the bill in its current form. On the same slide, you also see the number of submissions that are substantive. These submissions contain pages, numerous pages, elaborating on why they support or do not support. In terms of the second process that we are also engaging, the one of analyzing, we have started with the substantive submissions. If you look at bullet number 2, so far the content team led by Ms. Ngomani has analyzed 100 of the 226 substantive submissions. And just to analyze those 100 took us a lot of time because our colleagues also have other work to do. Ms. Ngomani is supported by 2 other content advisors who are not dedicated to the committee. One content advisor supports the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs. The other content advisor supports the Portfolio Committee on Social Development. So they only work on these submissions as and when they have time. Yes, you also see the breakdown of the email submissions there. Next slide. I have already hinted on the nature of the responses. They are generally very varied. You find different responses in the provincial public hearings as compared to the hand-delivered submissions, as well as the email submissions. The majority of the submissions made during the provincial public hearings support the bill in its current form. I've already indicated that you see a similar picture with the hand-delivered submissions. The email submissions give a contrasting picture. Honorable members, this is a work in progress, but so far these are the patterns that are emerging. On that last slide, we are trying to revisit the proposal that we made in March for the Portfolio Committee to consider supporting the proposal to procure an external service provider to continue with the work that has been started by the content advisors. We'll come back to that decision around this matter. The next set of slides relate to the oral submissions that are meant to take place at the beginning of the 4th term. We have received a total of 121 organizations, individuals, interested parties, stakeholders, etc., who have expressed interest to make oral submissions in Parliament. You see a breakdown in terms of organs of civil society, stakeholders, etc., in that table. But the total is 121, which is a huge number, actually. The next slide, and these are the people who have to consider how we're going to structure the oral submissions given this large number. And the next slide is trying to do that. We're proposing that you consider 2 possible scenarios. The first scenario, both scenarios public hearings. The proposal is that public hearings are conducted on Tuesdays and Fridays. That is 4 days, sorry, Tuesdays to Fridays. That is 4 days a week, beginning in the last week of October. Next term, the reason for starting the process in October is that normally at the beginning of the 4th term, there are processes of the bid RRR, the budget review reports. The first 2 weeks are occupied by those processes. I'm just trying to see the dates, the possible dates for the bid RRR, the 6th to the 16th of October, are likely to be allocated for these processes. I'm saying likely because we don't have the program yet. If we follow the tradition of the previous years, those 2 weeks are allocated for the bid RRR. This year, we don't know how far the disruption caused by COVID-19 will affect the program of Parliament. If we continue using the framework of the previous year, the first 2 weeks will be allocated to the bid RRR. Now, I must mention that we will only have the program tomorrow. Okay, so the skeleton program as we have it may change slightly, but this is what we can work with so far. Now, with the proposed program, we will conduct 7 oral submissions per day. In other words, 7 members of the public will present their oral submissions on each day, starting on Tuesday, Wednesday, the same thing up to Friday. The second scenario that you will see in the next slide, when we come to the next slide, is that if we also use the afternoons, we can cover about 9 members of the public. If we only use the mornings and allow members to attend plenary in the afternoon, we'll only cover 7 submissions per day.
Use how much time?
If we use 50 minutes, as we will illustrate in the next slide. In terms of the period that the process will take, if we start during the last week of October, we will continue until the first week of December to cover all 121 members of the public and organizations. Now, these are the 2 scenarios that we have referred to. The first scenario, the public submissions, the oral submissions take place until 12 o'clock, 10 to 12. Now, with this scenario, with both scenarios, the length of time for the submissions is 50 minutes. 20 minutes for the presentation and 30 minutes for discussion on each presentation. And then the second scenario also includes the afternoon session. In the afternoon, if there is a plenary, depending on what time the plenary ends, if it ends at 4 o'clock, that's the scenario there. We'll take 2 oral submissions, which will give us a total of 9. Honorable members, this brings us to the end of, sorry. The next slide, please. Just to highlight the decisions that have to be made by the committee. The first decision relates to the procurement of an external service provider. Given the large volume of work that's involved, the numerous submissions that we received, the proposal still remains that we consider procuring an external service provider to conclude the process. There is a separate attachment that we send to members on the terms of reference, the proposed terms of reference of the external service provider. The next decision should be around this program. During this meeting, maybe we invite members actually to make decisions around this program. And lastly, we're requesting the committee to endorse the approach of running public hearings and the analysis of the submissions currently. Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay. Honorable members, I would, for the first time, because my cell phone was a bit far, would be asking either to look at it or get hands, but I would imagine all members would like to take a bite on this. It's just a matter of who do I start with. But just to summarize, there was a temptation that we make these presentations to be separated. The last part that we have ended with is what we would like you to consider maybe first. Yes, there is going to be, this is what I mentioned, we're discussing with the House Chair, that there is a budget review report that must be completed before, up to by the end of October. We may just get 1 week in October to start this process, getting those 121. You'd also recall that we will probably do it as a hybrid. Majority of us will probably have to be in Cape Town, or if you are logged in, you are fine where you are. There are members who may not be able to come here. We may also allow presenters to come to Cape Town or sit wherever they are, and we get into that system. But Parliament is not going to incur additional cost about accommodating us elsewhere, about the gadgets being hired and this and that. So it's either in Cape Town or in your space where you can be logged in, to log in. Number 3, the House Chair was saying, because of the importance of the work that we are doing, on certain days like this afternoon, there's an oral question session of the ministers on our cluster. So all of us have to be there, and we are participating, we're interested. But if there could be any other cluster that we may not be directly affecting us, we may be allowed to continue this work during that sitting. Again, we may just have to log in just at the time of starting the next session, so that we can do as much as we can. Fourthly, this presentation is making a request to you that presenters are allowed to be given 20 minutes of the reports that we would have read anyway, and therefore we engage with each and every presenter for 30 minutes. I suppose they have put in breaks. So that is one part I would want members to keep on to really, among other things, comment on. The second part was actually giving us the background of what have we received that's still to be processed. And members are saying here, please switch off that one. Switch that one off. The members, the presenters, the parliamentary staff is saying it may take a bit longer if we go the way we are going in terms of analyzing. Can we get an external support procured for that process? I remember the members here were saying we need to be given clear terms of reference. One thing is another story to say, can the members here in principle support that view, but saying you still have to give us the details of what actually will they be doing in supporting you to get this work done. And that part is not here in details. And it waits for, firstly, the members agreeing and endorsing that in principle, and therefore say, give us the details of what will that be, what will that entail, that support that you are bringing. We are therefore saying, lastly, these processes are not mutually exclusive, not that we could start at the end of October, and maybe on the first day we are saying present to us, or they would have presented to us the terms of reference agreed upon that that process starts, so that that process of analysis goes on while we are giving oral presenters to visit us. So those two processes, that is what the last bullet is saying, that these processes can go concurrently. I now would like to open for members to speak, and I have not been able to look at my gadget as to who comes first. But for me, I would imagine, because I was really here trying to run away from this man presenting. Let me then see, last one was questions. See, first one is Honorable, can you then take your name? I have a question too. Where do I start? Question for me, please. Question must go separate rooms. Yes, I have a question. So I start this time with Hasina Ismail. You all will get a chance. It's just a matter of allocating numbers. So Hasina Ismail, number 2, Chirwa, 3, Janji, according to this list, 4, Van Staden, 5, Umama Uhlengwa, 6, Sokacha, 7, Ugela, 8, Munai. Who have I left out? Oh, see, where's Kwahube now? Oh, I saw her, yes. Oh, Siviwe, you are number 9. Yeah, I was just looking, I didn't look at my emails as I was actually trying to assist with the presentation in my office. Who has the left?
There are 2 more. There's Wilson and myself.
Thank you. The ladies first. Wilson, you are 10, and 11 will be Jacobs. Okay, let me just repeat our list. The first one will be Ismail, second one Chirwa, number 3 will be Janji, number 4 Van Staden, number 5 Honorable Hlengwa, number 6 Sokacha, number 7 Honorable Gela, 8 Munyai, number 9 Siviwe, 10 Honorable Wilson, and last Honorable Jacobs, in that order. I will not come in between. Thank you. I will give you the list. Was here. Mr. Pandit does not know you well, but just as you start, so that he can remember you, he's not like Vuyogas, the presenter. So please, honorable members, when you start, just say your name again so that you can record and remember which question was asked by which member. Thank you. Start, Honorable Ismail.
Good morning, everybody. Honorable Ismail here. I just have 2 questions for clarity. I just want to know, how were the entries for the petitions registered? And secondly is, I'm concerned about the days from Tuesday to Friday. We know that...
Hold on. He was changing seats. Start on the first question, Honorable Ismail.
Okay. My first area for clarity is, how were the entries on the petitions registered? Secondly is that I'm concerned about the days that have been given to us, Tuesday to Friday.
How was what registered? How was what registered?
The entries on our petitions. The petitions that were submitted, how were the entries registered? I want to know, how did they count the entries on the petitions? How were they registered in the totals given to us? Secondly, Chair, is the days that we've been given is Tuesdays to Fridays. I'm concerned because Fridays are usually the days that, we travel back to our constituencies to do our constituency work. And I'm also concerned about Thursday mornings, because Thursday mornings are caucus meetings. Even if we get leeway for Thursday afternoon, we do have caucuses on Thursday mornings. Thank you.
Thank you,
Honorable-
Chairperson. Honorable Chirwa, now I'm speaking. I have one question. I want to know what is meant that if additional resources are provided for the scanning process, it's going to be completed by the end of October. And what exactly besides COVID-19 stops that process from ending before the end of October? Because now we're on level 2, so there's also that. Like, on what level is this process being sorted if we're on level 2 lockdown, and what is meant by additional resources for this process, the scanning process, to be completed by the end of October? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Janji. First, let me thank the presenters for the work they did during at very difficult times. Well appreciated. Chair, I actually want to agree with the fact that we can do this concurrently. You remember that in one of the meetings we held during our visits to provinces, I can't remember which province, we had foreseen that we'll definitely need an external person to help because of the magnitude of the work. And given the explanation that has been given, that the people who are doing the analysis, there's only one person who's supported by people who have other jobs. So if we can get, and whilst we are doing the hearings, we get the service provider to do the what you call, to do the analysis that is being done, and the scanning maybe, because it looks like the scanning is taking a lot of time. Secondly, Chairperson, I suppose the whilst if we agree on the service provider, we can be given the terms of reference so that we can also look through terms of reference and input also on the terms. I guess the question asked by Chair, I'm sorry, I've got a load shedding in and out. That's why I was cut. But I was saying the question that was asked by Honorable on the days, maybe we could also, as we input, look at on how best we can request our different organizations so that at least during the Thursdays, we can be maybe given 2 Thursdays to work on this work, because this is quite a mammoth task. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just a few comments and some questions from myself. On the slide, the very first slide on the hand-delivered submissions, if we talk about additional resources, I think we must just make it very clear, and we must ask this question: is what will this process consist of? If I can get that answer, and can this external or additional resources, if it's from the outside of Parliament, be trusted? Because I think we must handle these submissions in a matter like almost like voting ballots. You understand what I mean? It's a very serious situation that we must handle it with the seriousness of the situation. And then my other question also with the email submissions, will that also be scanned into a system? And if so, how long will that process take to be completed? And on an external service provider, is we must ask each other, what guarantee do we have that this service provider will handle these submissions in a fair and safe manner, as I said earlier now, on a security issue. My point of view on this matter is that we are elected MPs of Parliament, and due to the security reasons, I should say that we are, as elected representatives, must handle this process ourselves. But now, yeah, we can talk about it. On the oral submissions to Parliament and to us as committee, I think before we go to that process, we must first sort out the scanning process and the sorting process before we go to another process. You understand what I mean, Chair? Otherwise, everything is going to be scrambled and everything can be demakar, if I can use the Afrikaans word. So I would suggest that we do the scanning first and then the sorting process before we go to the oral submission process. And if we go to the oral submission process afterwards, I would put the suggestion that the oral submission must be 60 minutes and not 50 minutes. So give it 10 minutes extra to those people also. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson. First of all, let me welcome the presentation and thank all the work they have done. Thank you very much. Mine is very short. I'm looking at these 121 people who can do it in verbally, that we can use the parliament. And that is my suggestion, that we all could go to the Cape Town and use our homes there. Secondly, I don't think, Chairperson, it will be wise to leave all this work to the hands of those who were scanning and emailing. Let us verify as a committee, let us verify all this work so that we know exactly what is output, what is yes or what is yes as a committee, so that we can be a witness of the public. The third one, I'll concur with Dr. Chanji for the service provider if we can get it. But first, we should verify all this work as a committee so that we can say we know, we can say we verify yes or no as the committee, because we are the representatives of the public. I thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Is it me? Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me also welcome the presentation and appreciate the work done by our officials in the Department of Health. Chairperson, I'll be repeating actually because I'm covered by Dr. Janki. Really, we need extra resources, extra people really to carry on with the work. As we see the submission, it's huge, especially the emailed and also the handover of submission. So for us to make sure that at least we work together, I think we must have extra people who will carry on so that we meet the target that we put aside for us for achieve this goal of NHI. And also on the October month, as we indicated that there will be also a budget review in October, only 1 week that will be available for us. I don't know, Chair, because even during the public hearing, we were also using weekend to cover some of our work. Whether is it possible also for us to work even over the weekend so that at least we have enough time to achieve this participation, to listen to our people what they want to submit in terms of NHI. But I'm covered by Dr. Janji. Thank you very much.
Honorable Sokacha is struggling. Let us go to the next one is, I think is Wilson, Honorable Wilson. If Sokacha will indicate when he's back, we'll take him. Now, Honorable Wilson.
Well, Ruby was ahead of me, but let me continue. Chair, one of the most important sections of that entire slide presentation that we just got was the fact that the responsibility of this committee is to ensure that there is reasonableness of processes. This committee had a meeting on one of our public hearing days with regards to this, and the committee resolved that we had to get an external auditor, for want of a better word, to manage the processes, and that this, when that went out to tender, would submit a clear specs or clear terms of reference on exactly how that process had to be followed. So that part we will support, but that needs to happen, and it needs to happen quite urgently. So I think we need to have a meeting with regards to the term of reference and ensure that that process begins. However, I do not believe that any further action, particularly in terms of public hearings or any of those kind of proposals, can happen until such time as the entire process of scanning has been done and we have been given an opportunity to go through all submissions as they are completed. We can't proceed until all submissions are finalised. That's including the written, because the written submissions will play a part in our assessment of the public submissions. They go hand in hand. And look, Chair, we can't accept the draft program. If I look at this program, whether it be proposal A or B, you're talking about starting at 9:30 for the first submission and finishing at 10 to 10 on that submission. That's actually 20 minutes. Some of those people who are coming to present to us are academia, who have submitted lengthy submissions. Under no circumstances can we limit those people who've gone through a lot of time and effort to put these forward, to put forward submissions, to do those kind of lengthy presentations in 10 minutes with only 10 minutes of questioning. We must allow a minimum of 1 hour per public submission. That is the big picture, so that we can go through the document, so that we can prepare proper, relevant and accessible questions. And you can't do that in 10 minutes, Chair. There's more than 10 people on the committee. That means each person will get 1 minute to ask a question, and then there will be no time for answers. That will not be accepted under any circumstances. And secondly, Chair, this is not a process that must be rushed. An entire country's future with regards to health is dependent on this process and on the NHI. This is not something we can rush. It has to be done professionally. It must be done with reasonableness of processes. And one must understand that apart from this committee, we have other responsibilities to Parliament as well as to our constituencies. And this must be taken into account as well. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I missed Kwahube. I had written her name in another list. It's Kwahube now, sorry.
I think you are deliberately trying to forget me here, Chair. This is not the first time. it's a joke.
Have you recovered from the load shedding?
I haven't recovered. That's why I can't put my video on. But I'm hoping that colleagues can hear me. My submission is in 3 parts. Thank you very much for the work that has been done by the parliamentary staff and the guidance that you have given them as well. It's much appreciated. But I've got 3 elements to this that I need to raise. The one is the process element, and the second one is the content element, and then the other one is the substantive things that we need to consider about this piece of legislation. Now, in terms of process, I think Member Wilson and Van Staden, and I think Dr. Kyanki and Honorable Gela have reminded us all that when we met in Mpumalanga, I think it was, we did make a decision that it was important that we get a service provider, but the service provider, and I remember it was a lengthy conversation about how the service provider must be chosen, but also what the function of the service provider will be. We decided that it's important that we understand that the process of going through these recommendations, these submissions, is the work of the members of parliament. It is not the work of the content advisors of parliament. It is our job. And yes, we need the assistance in being able to sort out each and every one of these submissions, be it scanned, be it hand delivered, whatever the case may be. But ultimately, the buck stops with us, and ultimately the responsibility lies with us. And so, to that end, Chair, I think it's important that we have a conversation about what will the actual service provider do? What will be the terms of reference that we will give to the service provider? For instance, my view is that a service provider should merely group these submissions to say these are handwritten ones, these are videos, these are coming from academia, these are coming from NGOs, whatever. We need to decide that as a committee. And I think we've got the capacity to do so because we understand the work that is at stake, and we understand the gravity and the seriousness of this bill. So we need to decide firstly, what will that service provider do, and what will be our role? Because ultimately, as Member Van Staden has said, we need to make sure that we know what we're talking about. When people out there ask us, whether or not we have read their submissions and we have looked at their submissions, we need to be able to be confident and not say that this was handed over to a service provider. Then secondly, the other element, as I said, there were 3 elements. The other elements are, to that end on the process, then I think it's very, very important then for us to firstly do those terms of reference as a committee, agree on them, and then Parliament needs to go out to tender and get that service provider. And I think then we need to sit down with the service provider and have this discussion. And then that work needs to commence. And those submissions then need to be sorted out so that we can make sure then by the time we start with our public hearings with the stakeholders, we already know what we are dealing with. So that's the one. Secondly, the allocation of time. I agree with the members who have said that this is inadequate. So I think, when I look at the slide that was presented to us, we already have an indication of the groupings of the entities that are wanting to come to represent to us. There's industry experts, there's academics, there's NGOs, there's a lot of different types of people who are not simply going to say yes or no or maybe to the bill. They're going to say to us, clause 15 of section what. We would recommend that this be redrafted in such and such a way. I don't think that it is fair, nor do I think that it is proper for those people to be curtailed in the kind of time that they're given. I think it would be fair to give each entity 30 minutes to present and 30 minutes for us as the legislators who have to then make that law to interrogate their submissions. And then lastly, Chair, is that we've got to be careful, colleagues here. I understand that there is an urgency But we've got to be careful because we've got to be careful of a court challenge. I, for one, don't want to be a part of the members who have been found wanting in terms of making sure that this process is followed and is followed well. And so we must make sure that we give people ample opportunity. We must make sure that we go through this process well. And obviously, as other members have said, we also must make sure that we balance this out with our constituency work and our other parliamentary work. And so I would support the program insofar as saying Tuesdays and Wednesdays are solid days for us to work throughout the days and perhaps get excused from plenaries if needed on those particular days. But Thursdays are caucus days, and Fridays most members travel back. So those would be my inputs, Chair. I hope I was audible.
You are loud and clear. Let me go to Honorable Munyai, but let me check, is Sokacha back? Not yet. Honorable Munyai? Honorable Munyai is struggling. Okay. Honorable Jacobs?
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, everyone, for the inputs. Thank you also to the presenter for the presentation. We can see that there are a couple of different views. There are also views which are agreed upon by the members. So I would like to raise my views in terms of those points. There is an agreement that we should look at employment of a service provider, and also that we should look at the terms of reference and discuss that terms of reference and have a process for that. So I would agree that that in itself is the process we need to follow. Then there is a disagreement in terms of the days which we will have to use, with the suggestion being Tuesdays to Fridays, some saying Tuesdays and Wednesdays, others saying weekends, etc. I think from my view, I would be in agreement with as many days as we can. So maybe we also need to look at the programs of Parliament, if we can, up front, and see which days are reasonable for us to meet. It could be that we might have to sacrifice some time, and we'd have to really look at the need for that. And then in terms of the oral submissions, I would also want to think that we should be reasonable in terms of the time allowed for people to come from afar and come and present, and for us to ask questions in terms of this reasonableness, that we are clear on what people are presenting, that any clarity is cleared up with us. And then lastly, you know, we trust the officials which have done the work to now, and we trust that they would have compiled the results that they have just given us today, and that we'd be trusting them forward to assist us with the process. We must just be very clear on what it is that we must do, and make certain that the program is above any reasonable doubt, as well as the outcomes of these public hearings and our interrogation of it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So Kacha Omunyai? Okay, none of them have been able to log in. Let me then just comment before I allow these members to then take the question that may come after them. Yes, most members reminded us and the Honorable Fans that then we acknowledge that you did not join us in all other public hearings. A decision was taken by this committee that from what we are gathering from the officials of Parliament, we may need an external service provider. So that part was already dealt with and resolved. All we needed to say, can they show us what service will they be providing, what terms of reference, Honorable Kwahube is correct. We do not outsource the work to them without us knowing and seeing what actually is there. I have also been appraised by the staff that all those that we said are emailed are already captured in the system, and therefore you can access them. This is a challenge not about emailed submissions, about the hand-delivered ones. And I can hear from members there's a varied process in terms of time. Yes, I corrected some of the members of staff who were saying we give the presenters 10 minutes because they would have seen that no, that's too little. But again, to move to another outlier of an hour presentation, that may just be too much. So we might have to play in between with the suggestions that have come up from the members, like the one from Honorable Kwahube of 30 minutes presentation and 30 minutes engaging, and then we take it from there. But let me then get the staff members to respond to some of these inputs, and then we see how we could deal with the processes. Yes, on the maybe we can also rest by saying political parties might find it, we might not be able to resolve it here because it may be party decisions to say after caucuses on Thursdays, do we reconvene after lunch and do 2 presentations after lunch on a Thursday? Yes, we can agree as parties that Fridays is not a good day. We can do one or we don't do anything at all. So those things maybe we may not resolve them right now here because I'm sure it may need caucuses to really come back with the mandate of the parties. But the parliamentary staff were just presenting what could be options that we can work on. But let me then give them a space to comment and respond to the questions raised. Babu Bandi.
Thank you, Chairperson. I will invite my colleagues, in particular the content advisor. I've been working very closely with her, and any other colleagues that may assist in responding to the questions that are technical in nature. Yes, I just want to pick up the area of agreement that members have highlighted and the chairperson reiterated. The area of the employment of a service provider, yes, we will take it up. We do have a draft presentation on the terms of reference. If time allows us, we could present it today, or we could reconvene a meeting to look into that. In terms of the specific questions that were asked, Honorable Ismail, you asked about petitions. One of the slides indicates that a petition was, petitions were recorded as one petition, for example, with several people supporting the petition. We have an instance in the slide where 40,000 people supported one petition. We recorded it as such, just to show that it's a petition and the diversity of the nature of the submissions that we have. I'll leave the issue of the days of the week to members, as the chairperson has already addressed the matter, that members will have to relook their proposals and refer them to us. Honorable Chirwa, the additional resources, currently we're working with seven committee assistants from committee section. So when we talk about additional resources, in this particular instance, we want to look at other sections in Parliament who can provide us with additional resources. Working with the ICT section, we have agreed that in order to complete the process by the end of October, if we continue using the internal staff, we need 10 dedicated staff members from Parliament. So that is the issue that we are currently looking at. You will be mindful that these processes have to follow. Oh, sorry. I was going to say we have to take into account the SCM processes, but then in this particular case, we may not need to look at the SCM processes. It's a matter of looking at Parliament and other sections via HR to see who's available. So that's as far as the question around the internal staff is concerned. Honorable Jantjies, Dr. Jantjies, I think your issue has already been addressed. It was the issue of the service provider. And you, yes, thank you for supporting the idea of handling the process concurrently. Honorable Van Staden,
nothing to say, just move.
okay, I don't see a specific issue that is still not addressed. You will remind me if we have not addressed what you raised.
Yeah. No, Honorable Van Staden talked about the trust that we can have. Do we have a trust on the external service provider that can be sent to us? I've already answered the issue of that. The emailed ones are already readily available right now for us to see whether the external service provider would be a fair group of people to work with or for. So that one we need to say something.
Sorry, Chair.
Legally,
can I
the
request
department
that
was also
you repeat the last part? Sorry, I missed it.
The external service provider, is that a fair group of people that you think could be identified to do a fair process on the work?
Okay, thank
I
you.
was asking actually about the security process regarding that. That's what I said. We must handle this matter like voting ballots. That's why I was asking. Surround the security matters of an external service provider. What guarantee do we have that the service provider will handle these submissions in a fair and safe manner? That was my question. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. That's a tough one, Honorable Van Staden. What we could do, we could come up with checks and balances.
legally the
Perhaps
department was also
right at the beginning, we may need to include the issue of security as a requirement. We put it in the terms of reference. On the issue of yes, we may need to think of checks and balances. I'll take up the matter for discussion with my colleagues. Thanks. Honorable Slengwa, yes, members will have access to the submissions, as the chairperson has already indicated. The idea is not to take the constitutional responsibility of members. Members actually should drive the process, as we are doing right now. I'm trying to look at my notes, Honorable Jela.
Okay, she is Gela,
Honorable Jela. Need extra people.
An enabling environment.
Yes, we are supporting
engagement.
The proposal to get an external service provider. Clearly, this matter is receiving overwhelming support. It's a matter that we have to take it up going forward. I'm looking at my notes. If I have not addressed anything, honorable members will advise us, will remind us.
Chairperson.
Yes, yes.
I have a suggestion because I'm a bit worried that perhaps the recommendations from the members may have been lost one way or another. I recommend that we send through to you and Vyogazi our inputs on this presentation in full, including the deliberations we will have with our caucuses, so that we can send you a full comprehensive response. Because what I don't want is for us to proceed on certain things that may have been missed here in this engagement. So I would suggest that we do that and we commit to have that to you by Monday, so that we can have it in writing, of the things that we suggested and what we agree on in terms of also the engagements we've had with our caucuses.
Yeah, maybe that might be a good suggestion, because I have a presenter here who is now not sure where he's going to look for answers. He's not finding them. He's not sure whether he has completed the process of replying to our questions, and we could take that as one of the options. I don't know whether it's actually fine, but he was giving me an impression that he's already done all that he was actually expected to do, and he has answered all the questions. And it was before he could even touch on the comments of Honorable Kwahube on issues of Honorable Jacobs. I see another hand there, Honorable Van Staden.
I know.
Chairperson, I want to support the suggestion. Let's each and every member of this committee put it to you in writing by Monday next week, and so that we have it in writing as well. But otherwise, something can happen. But we came back after another meeting, and someone can say, "No, I didn't say this. I said that." You understand what I'm saying? So I think I want to support the suggestion. Let's put it in writing to you, Chairperson. Thank you.
Okay.
Chair.
Yes, Honorable Janji.
No, I was going to ask the what to call the proposed term of reference are within the what to call. Have they been sent to us?
I don't remember.
Ms. Majalamba. Oh, sorry.
Chair, can I just maybe give a message that I received from Honorable Munyai, that if you could read his input on the WhatsApp, since he's not connected. Thank you.
Answer that question.
Ms. Majalamba, can I check if the presentation on the terms of reference was sent to members, please?
Yes, the terms of reference was sent to the members with all the other documents yesterday with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, honorable members, the presentation that you received last night summarizes the main issues regarding the terms of reference. What we can do is we will submit a narrative version of the terms of reference.
Right. I missed that part, but I hope it's sorted out. There's an apology from Honorable Munyai, who is unable to link up. And members, you see, he says, he's written to me, he says, Chair, I agree with the Honorable Dr. Pumza Janji and Gela. We should have trust on our staff. We are not doing this for the first time. I disagree with Honorable Van Staden, Kwahube, and let's have the consult not conflicted, and that did express any view on NHI to consolidate all submissions. I don't agree with Honorable Wilson. We don't have endless time in the NHI. The COVID-19 pandemic demonstrated that we need NHI more than ever before. Let's expedite the process. Finally, thank you all the work of the staff and thank them for hard work for the key and solid roadmap of the NHI process. Chair, let's move to Zoom. It's easy to be disrupted with Microsoft. This last part, in fact, it is a struggle, and somebody still has to educate me why we are on this Microsoft thing. Is it cheaper or what is it? It's really a headache to get into this process. Anyway, that is something for the staff to help us with. Honorable members, there are certain things that we need to just dispel of. The external provider is not the first time this matter is coming to us. It's agreed upon in other meetings. We were there. All we are saying is that the staff must explicitly give us an indication. What will they be presenting? Where are the challenges, the terms of reference? Where are the challenges that are there? Number two, if members here were to say all emailed submissions, which is easy to have, we would like to, on this day, to have a look at them, send them to me, and somebody must comment here, either IT or Mr. Bandi, how do we get to see the emailed ones? Because it's one thing to say that is another process, but we could actually have access to that. Number three, Lindokuhle and the team are processing the hand-delivered ones in terms of 1,000 out of 32,000 have been processed and scanned, but it takes, and it goes to the question of Honorable Chirwa. If we let things as they are, they will finish scanning in December. But what I'm not getting from Mr. Bandi is he making a request, and is he getting a support to say those other 10 additional staff members will be dedicated to this? He says they are available as and when they don't have a job elsewhere. Now, it means we'll then be saying we're finishing in December, even to do the scanning, if we are relying on the process that is outlining without any firm decision and confirmation from him to say they shall be dedicated to us, and therefore they will be scanning as of tomorrow, and all those 10 we need will show. So it's a very gray area that is leaving us with to actually say, when will this be processed? Because he's not, number four, he's not saying he needs an external process to come and do scanning. You hire people to do the scanning, but that is not what I'm just scanning, standing in front of the machine and scan and scan and scan. Now, can therefore we be able to separate that? Can that be fast-tracked in-house and be done in Parliament, the scanning, by members of Parliament, by members of the staff, and that becomes known to him and he gets to go and motivate for that? So that we are at another level to say we now have all hand-delivered scanned, and all hand-delivered are in the process that we can also give them to members to see that this is what was scanned. 32,000 are scanned, and therefore it's available electronically, we see them. What also members are differing on here is to say, can these processes be started while that process is going on? Because we now know there's 121 organizations who have requested to make presentations, and that process, members are saying it should start, it should not start. That is a part that maybe we were not able to resolve now here and indicate, because again, we are trying to accommodate everybody else in terms of this thing. But it looks like I was going to make a request that a clear terms of reference discussion with us be presented, sent to us, and actually be brought to us to say what will be the external service provider be doing, obviously not scanning, doing something much better, and where are we with the scanning by next week. And why we are pushing honorable members to have this meeting today is because we are getting a recess of about, I think, 3 weeks, but we may probably in a fortnight ask you, wherever you'll be, if they will be kind to log into and still request, because parliamentary staff and parliamentary process has their own issues. If you are on recess, you are on recess, no meetings. So we may not be able to know whether we'll have a meeting in 3 weeks' time, or we'll wait until we come back to get a presentation of the terms of reference and agree and all that. Maybe by that time, this Mr. Bandi will tell us where are we in terms of the scanned document from the hand delivered. Now, the issues of our political parties agreeing to only a Tuesdays and the Wednesday, we need to go and refine that outside there and agree to say this is what will be given to us by our political parties. We may not use this day, we may not use this day, something like that. So there are certain things that may still need us to tie up in a fortnight's time, provided we are allowed to have a meeting. Let me hear that part now in the members. Was Mr. Band was giving me an impression that he has finished answering what he was asked to answer.
Chair,
Give a name.
Chairperson Ngujanji.
Yes.
I think if the terms of reference were sent yesterday, in the collation of all these views we're talking about, people should have time to look at the terms of reference so that by Monday, all what we think should be added in the terms of reference we have sent to the Secretariat. And I would suggest that sometime next week, let us then have another meeting to round up all these things that we have discussed and shall have written to you people. And I still believe, Chair, that the question of the oral submissions surely cannot wait for those service providers who are still going to terms of reference, go out to tender. Surely we can be doing with these ones who have shown interest that they want to come and present to the committee. Thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable Janji, Honorable Janji, that part we may take, but I'm not sure whether next week, Wednesday, is not too soon, because I still have to make a request to House Chair. In principle, we might agree, but whether it will be next week, let's pause a bit in terms of firmly agreeing that the next meeting shall take place next week. The next one will now be Kela.
Chairperson, I fully agree with Dr. Janji. The oral submission, we can proceed, Chair, even if it's not next week, that week, so that at least we start the work. We can't be waiting for long. I support Dr. Janji. Let's proceed with the oral so that at least there's something work that we are doing as a committee.
Honorable Van Staden, any other hand?
Portfolio committees from Public Works.
I have a question.
For now.
But you had a question first?
Chair, can I go? Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Honorable Kwakube, you are struggling there. Can I Van Staden so long?
Okay, thank you, Chairperson.
Yes.
To make sure that you actually intervene. There was none.
Okay. I hear what the members are saying, but remember, we cannot scramble ECWIS process, if I can make that use that term. We can't just mix a very serious matter, and if the right way is not going to be followed, we as a committee going to get serious problems from stakeholders and the public outside of Parliament. We must make 100% sure that process is 100% fully accurate. That's why I'm saying we can't scramble ECWIS process. We must sort out the scanning and sorting first, then we can look at the program of oral submissions. And on the external service provider as well, we must be very careful there. If they must not, it's not only the security and so forth, but an audited process must also be built into that if we agree to use an external service provider. It's not just to go and appoint someone, because there must be an audited process on the work they are going to do. But it's very serious matters, and it's going to take, we must sort these issues out before we go and went in and just take a decision. That's why I'm asking, let's give us inputs to you as chairperson by Monday in writing, after we speak to our various caucuses also about the use of constituency days or not, or just Tuesdays and Wednesdays or not. And I don't want to foresee that this committee be dragged into a court challenge because of processes not followed. Chair, we must be make 100% sure of what we are doing. Thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable members, I'm tempted to agree that we refine our processes after a pause, and actually it was, we could actually have a wisdom to do it here, but sometimes we might even be much wiser when we refer and have an input of our political parties, because you'll then be bringing to me a comprehensive story that says, yes, I'm allowed by my party also to do a Thursday afternoon and this, that, and the other. Let's agree on that process and maybe refine this. But I don't want us to keep on going back to the external provider, the security of parliament, all that we are saying. And one member, Honorable Van Strens, that was Honorable Janji. Let's look into them and add on. Let's not add on now. Add on, get your space and time. Let's add on and we'll collate all that. All I'm saying, whether we refine those terms of reference next week, it may be too short because I still have to go and request a meeting. And if it's allowed, then we can inform you. If it's not allowed, we do it in a fortnight's time. But then we can also refine the issues as to these processes that you are saying should not be concurrent. Other members are saying it could be. Let us also get an engagement in our group, and then I will take that process and refine it for our next meeting, please. Mamu Shengwa is agreeing. She says she is actually endorsing what I'm saying. Any member who want to have another additional point in summarizing?
Chair, you have covered me. I just to clear, it would be amiss, I think, of us to hear some stakeholders while we don't know what the service provider is going to be doing for us. But you've now clarified that and refine, and we can at our next meeting with our written submissions to you then speak to it. It for me seems then moot, because what then is the point of the service provider if we're going to be seeing some people for oral submissions while the service provider is doing what exactly? So I think it's important that we go and figure out exactly what it is that we want from them, and we make those submissions in writing to you. So I endorse your summary.
Okay. Honorable members, may I request that so that I don't get 20 submissions from Honorable Janji and another 50 from Honorable Kwahube, you then go into our group and say, with reference to the portfolio committee meeting that we have, I have the following 7 points to raise, so that you raise it once off. We don't have to come back tomorrow again. Take your time. On Saturday morning or Sunday night, I will say, I'm covered now with Honorable Van Staden. I've looked into these 9 points. Then I will then collate all that with Miss Machalamba, and we then collate all that. All that you need to do for yourself is just to post what you are posting, but please post it once off and post all your points in a comprehensive package in the group. We will, with Ms. Machalamba, sort that out and then present a comprehensive report to you based on your input and how we then have seen this balancing up as our story. Can we leave it at that, honorable members? Yes. Okay, we'll still chat this afternoon when all of us are going to be asking questions to our minister, and I can read your mind is good in asking the questions. And as we meet at 3 o'clock question time, thank you very much, honorable members. And thanks to our staff members who are also here.
Thank you, Chairperson. See you later.